Down the hill. Those are the last words the world ever heard from Liberty German. A 14-year-old girl who pulled her phone out of her pocket and started recording the man she believed was about to kill her and her best friend. That video. 43 seconds of audio. A grainy figure in a blue jacket walking the Monon High Bridge. That is what sat on a server inside the Indiana State Police for almost 8 years before a jury was finally allowed to watch it. And when the jury watched it, they convicted Richard Allen. I want you to picture this place. Delphi, Indiana, population 3,000, a trail along Deer Creek, an old rusted railroad bridge stretched across a gorge, no railings, just ties and sky. February 13th, 2017, a Monday. School was out for the day. 2 best friends got dropped off at the trailhead by Libby's older sister. They were supposed to be picked up a few hours later. They never came home. Their names were Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Abby was 13. Libby was 14. Abby wanted to be an artist. She drew constantly, horses, flowers, the faces of her friends in careful colored pencil. Libby played volleyball, took AP classes, and had this dry humor that her grandparents still quote in interviews to this day. These were not background characters in a documentary. These were 2 kids with birthdays coming up and plans for the weekend. And the last thing Libby did with her life was try to protect both of them by turning on her camera. Here is what that video captured. A man in a dark jacket and jeans, hands in his pockets, walking behind them on the bridge. At one point he says 4 words in a low flat voice. Guys, down the hill. That is it. That is all of him. For 7 years and 9 months, that short clip, along with a still image pulled from it, was all the public ever saw. Investigators held the rest of the video back. They said it was to protect the integrity of the case, to make sure that when they caught him, only the killer would know what was really on that phone. Let me tell you how they caught him, because this part is almost unbelievable. In 2017, a man named Richard Allen walked into the Delphi tip line himself. He told a conservation officer that he had been on the trail the afternoon the girls disappeared. He gave his name. He gave his clothing. He said he saw 3 young women on a bridge. Nothing was done with that report. The tip got filed, misspelled, buried in a mountain of paperwork. For 5 years, it sat there. In 2022, a volunteer came across the file while cleaning up the tip database. She flagged it. Investigators followed up. They went to Richard Allen's house. They asked about clothing. They got a warrant. Inside, they found a blue Carhartt jacket. Inside a dresser drawer, inside a wooden box, inside a zipped pouch, they found a .40 caliber Sig Sauer handgun. And on the ground between Abby and Libby's bodies, back in 2017, crime scene techs had recovered 1 single unfired bullet. A bullet that had been cycled through a chamber. Tool marks, extractor marks, ejector marks. The lab matched that unfired bullet to Richard Allen's gun. His gun, cycled, found feet from the girls. A weapon nobody else on Earth had access to. Stop right there. If that is all the prosecution had, it would already be extraordinary. But that is not all they had. Richard Allen was held in state prison during his pretrial detention. Segregation unit. The conditions of his confinement would become the single most fought-over issue in the entire case. Because while he was there, over the course of roughly a year, Richard Allen confessed. To his wife on recorded prison phone calls, to a prison psychologist, to correctional officers, to other inmates, more than 60 times. He told his wife on the phone, "I did it. I killed Abby and Libby." He described details about the crime scene that were never released to the public. The defense had a different story. They argued that Allen was in psychotic distress, sleep-deprived, medicated, losing weight, losing his grip on reality. They said the confessions were the ramblings of a man being destroyed by the conditions he was being held in. And they pushed an alternative theory, that the real killers were a group of men practicing a Norse pagan religion called Odinism, that Abby and Libby had been arranged in a ritualistic way at the scene, that branches had been placed on their bodies in runic symbols. Judge Frances Gull. And I want you to hear that name. Judge Frances Gull. She is a 30-year veteran of the bench. She was assigned to this case after the local judge recused. She is the reason there was a trial at all, after a year of defense filings nearly blew the whole thing up. And she ruled that the Odinism theory did not meet Indiana's evidentiary standard. She would not let it in front of the jury. That ruling, more than anything else, is what is now being fought over on appeal. November 11th, 2024. A jury of Allen County residents deliberated for 19 hours over 4 days. They found Richard Allen guilty on 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of murder during the commission of kidnapping. A month later, Judge Gull sentenced him to 130 years. The maximum. Consecutive, not concurrent. He will die in prison unless something changes. Here is where you find us in April 2026, because this case is not over. In December 2025, after multiple extensions, Richard Allen's appellate attorneys filed a 113-page brief with the Indiana Court of Appeals. 3 core arguments. Argument 1. The search of Allen's home was unconstitutional. They claim the warrant application omitted facts and misrepresented others. Argument 2. The jailhouse confessions were involuntary. They argue a man in solitary confinement, decompensating mentally, cannot give a voluntary statement. Argument 3. The trial was fundamentally unfair because the defense was prevented from presenting the Odinism alternative suspect theory. In March 2026, the Indiana Attorney General's office filed the state's response. A brief arguing every single one of those issues was correctly decided by Judge Gull, and every single conviction should stand. The defense now gets to file a reply. Either side can request oral argument. And then a 3-judge panel of the Indiana Court of Appeals will decide whether Richard Allen's conviction holds, whether he gets a new trial, or whether portions of his case get sent back to Carroll County for reconsideration. There is one more detail I need you to know. Judge Frances Gull, the judge who presided over this trial, who issued every ruling now being challenged, announced she will retire from the bench at the end of 2026. She leaves the case she will be remembered for, still under appeal. So what do you do with all of this? What do you do when a man walks into the tip line himself? When his bullet sits at the scene? When he confesses 60 times to his wife, to doctors, to guards? When a jury watches the video and convicts, and yet his lawyers fight, and the state fights back, and the appeals court takes its time? You go back to what Libby did, a 14-year-old kid, walking across a bridge, hearing a stranger's voice behind her, knowing something was wrong, and reaching for her phone, not to call for help. There was no time. She reached for her phone to make a record, so that somebody, someday, would see his face, would hear his voice, would know. Down the hill. That was the last thing she recorded. And almost 8 years later, 8 years, a jury in Allen County heard those words and answered her. I am Carson Morgan. Until next time. Stay curious, stay safe,